Pick Six with Mully and Haugh starts now.
Is Luis Robert Jr. a rare success story for the 2023 White Sox? Is he a rare success story for manager Pedro Grifol?
Yeah, it's nice to talk something happy with the White Sox, right? So that would be Luis Robert Jr. I believe he had a hand in 6 RBI, home run, a whole bit. Did he have a couple? He hit a home run every game. So I think they scored 7 runs over the weekend. I mean, it's just kind of a disaster.
Which one was your
think
favorite?
about it that way. Exactly. But he's been kind of a one-man power show. He's obviously a great defensive player. And you think about Pedro Grifol getting on him and pulling him out of a game and all that stuff. It's probably the best thing this guy's done. And it's one of those rare things that has actually worked. You wondered how that would turn out. Well, he's out of whatever slump he was in, and he's seeing the ball well, and he's playing. If you had a team of that guy, then you're on to something. That's all. You just need everyone like him.
That's it.
That's just that small little bit.
8 other guys like that.
Well, listen, if he can help the White Sox turn on the fireworks every game in this homestand, it's going to be things will turn around, right? They have to, or it's going to come to the point where they're just not going to throw him a pitch to hit. If nobody else in the lineup, got to get the guy some protection. So if nobody else is going to do anything, then maybe you just give him the 4 fingers and he walks himself over to first base. But he's been really, really good, really, really hot. Unfortunately, that's not enough. And I mean, if Pedro Grifol's not going to get credit when guys struggle, if he's going to get blamed for part of the struggle and not being able to motivate the players, then in this case, we have to give him some credit for Robert being successful. You can't say he has nothing to do with him being successful and then, well, it's because you can't motivate that this guy's not playing well.
No, that's appropriate. I think on April 29th, Pedro did what he needed to do. And he sent Luis Robert a message. Message accepted and received. Since that point in the month of May, Luis Robert is number 1 in the American League. Batting average, home runs, runs batted in, runs, slugging percentage, and OPS. This is the guy who is the player of the month in the American League who responded to his embarrassment the right way. He looks like he's chasing less. He looks like he's connecting more. He looks like he's doing everything that has been asked of him. Is he running harder to first base? I think sometimes he looks like he may not be hustling because he is so fluid. I don't know. I haven't had any examples to cite since that point that he's not been hustling. But boy, he began the season playing a tremendous center field defensively. Mm-hmm. He had the little setback with the no hustle play down the line at first. Pedro did what he did. And now we have one of the most explosive hitters in the American League. Long may it last, because when you're looking for bright spots, they're hard to find on the south side. But you got one in Luis Robert Jr.
That is the million-dollar question with the White Sox.
What should we read into that neither Rick Hahn nor Kenny Williams nor anybody in a decision-making mode was available to speak about the sorry state of the White Sox before the recent homestand, which is considered a professional courtesy by most top executives?
Well, I think it's time to take a big-picture look, and I think that when you have a team struggling to the extent the Sox are struggling on a 108-loss pace, then if you mean it when you say, put it on me, if you mean it when you say that accountability matters, prove it. Show it. Show up. And they didn't. And I don't think that it was, maybe there was a scheduling conflict, maybe there were extenuating circumstances, maybe they didn't want to ruin anybody's Mother's Day weekend. I don't know. But they didn't show up, they didn't talk about it, and we still don't know what the direction will be and how they're going to get out of this from the front office perspective. We talk about and we'll continue to discuss, are the White Sox closer to contending or rebuilding? To me, it's an obvious answer, but I'd like to hear it from the voice and from the source of the problem and from the people who are going to be, until it's proven otherwise, in charge of the solution. Or who is going to be in charge of the solution? Or does this silent period suggest that they're talking about changes at the top, changes that are necessary? I don't know, because they didn't show up. We don't know because they have allowed us to continue to shape the message. They've done nothing to change the narrative, on or off the field. So, missed opportunity once again by the White Sox front office.
Well, David, you mentioned about like scheduling conflict, right? So do we deserve, is it our business to know, like, let's say that was like he's in Birmingham, he is here, he is there. Should that be out there? Like, Rick's not here today because of this. Or does this have anything to do with the closed door meeting? So, like, Pedro Grifol mentioned that there was a closed door meeting with the club. And then, obviously, you have a closed door meeting because the record is that why he didn't want to address that?
There are things that happen on the field every single night. We're talking about the direction of the organization.
Oh, right. I understand. I'm just trying to come up with, like,
the two.
Do we as media, do we as fans deserve to know why Rick wasn't available? I mean, you don't hear from Kenny. We don't hear from Kenny usually, period, right? He talked to the Sun-Times once this year, and that was a good get by the Sun-Times. But that's all we've heard, right, from Kenny Williams this year?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, oh, Kenny will be. But sometimes, like with the Cubs, you hear from both Carter Hawkins and Jed Hoyer on the same homestand at different times.
To me, it's less about the media and what we want. It's more about speaking to the fans and being transparent to them.
It's kind of, as I said earlier, it's kind of inexcusable because you're giving away the narrative, right? You're just telling people, well, believe whatever you want to believe. We're not going to tell you anything because we really have nothing to say. So you're 13-26. Is that what the record was when they came home and they had the closed door meeting? You're begging for any kind of a move, any kind of action, any kind of response. I would imagine that Rick Hahn feels put it on me should just be, that's his last statement, and he's sticking with it. I don't know what else to believe about it, frankly. And I think that you're letting yourself down by not trying to explain what's happening. I don't even know if he's under any kind of pressure. I don't know if he feels like he's waiting for something to happen. If now the decision has gone beyond him and he can't come out and really say anything because he hasn't been told what his fate is. But it's a terrible season. All of whatever their plans were have blown up in their faces. And they're probably hoping that something changes, but guess what? This is who they are. Like, you can't sit back and say, well, wait till we get on a winning streak, because you just got humiliated in Kansas City, and now you come home and lose another series. It's not going to change. This is who they are. What did you say, 108 losses?
On pace for.
That is pretty much who they are. I'm not being mean. I mean, this is a bad team, and they have shown it repeatedly, and all the injuries in the world. All you're doing is swapping guys in and out. Elvis Andrus has now he's out. So he's on that's the one guy that had played every game this season. Now he's on the IL.
Bleak.
Yes, it's very bleak.
It's definitely bleak.
And then you bring back Jake Berger, and boom goes the dynamite, but it's just not enough because they don't have enough. It's that simple. But I'd like to hear from him. I really would.
Yeah, I misunderstood the question or not. It doesn't matter.
What happened to the Cubs after Friday night's solid victory over the Twins? Were the Saturday and Sunday blowouts bad enough to kill the momentum that had built up enough to give the Cubs the look of a good team up until Saturday afternoon?
I thought they were going to lose that series when we talked about it on Friday. I just felt like they were playing a mediocre brand of baseball. They weren't playing as well as they had earlier in the year, and they were suffering through this runners in scoring position thing. When they came back and won that game on Friday, I thought, excellent, they're going to win this series. They're finally turning it around. And then when you see starting pitching getting knocked out of the game, and the Stroh show was unbelievable. I just expected so much more from him. And didn't I read, like on Saturday, or anyway, before yesterday, did I not read that they were negotiating and they were talking about a contract extension? And I thought, well, that's good news.
They apparently are. Yeah.
That'll help him,
right?
Perform better. And guy has one bad game, I'm not going to sit here and say don't sign him to an extension. I think it's a good idea. But, man, that was just a bad couple of days, man. Just bad, bad, bad.
That's how I felt yesterday about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That was just a kick to the gut because Friday, it's Friday, rough work week, go out, watching the game, Apple TV, only local, the radio, Pat and Ron had the local call, was watching the game on my wife's iPhone. I got to tell you, how they present the game visually, spectacular. Not that Marquee does a really nice job too, but I'm just a lot of broadcast groups. I thought Apple TV did showing the picture of the game. I don't know if it was Apple TV on an Apple phone. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It was spectacular.
It looks visually great. Yeah.
It was fantastic. And then how the Cubs came back in that game to win that game was great. Not having Nico Horner around, I think that really shows up. We talked about that as we left here Friday. I said we're either going to be talking about Nico Horner not being around, or we're going to talk about Matt Mervis either being really, really good or really, really bad. And I think they clearly miss Nico Horner's energy at the top of that lineup. David's can't wait to disagree with me for some reason here. He's talking to himself. Can't wait to. But when you give up 8 home runs in 2 games and you get outscored 27-4, and Miles Mastrobuoni is back on the team because Nico Horner is out, and his effort is throwing balls to the Twins that they're banging all over the place, it's a rough weekend, and it's only going to get harder as they're facing Framber Valdez down in Houston tonight, 6:35 on the score.
The only reason I was reacting the way I was reacting with my facial expressions, I suppose, was that they gave up 27 runs in 2 games. That's not Nico Horner's fault.
But you can just see that the offense missed him. I didn't say that was his fault, but the offense missed him.
I don't know that they missed him. Christopher Morel pretty much is a,
But what if you had Christopher Morel and Nico Horner? That's
maybe you
wouldn't
get. You might not have gotten both guys.
Yes, you would have.
I think that Christopher Morel's in the lineup because Nico Horner wasn't there. My point is that it's always about the pitching, and the pitching vanished on Saturday and Sunday. They took the weekend off. Pitching lab is closed for inspection.
They had a leak or something.
They had a lot of leaks. This was bad.
Some gas that's been released.
Here comes Kyle Hendricks.
Well, for who?
That's a good question.
Nasty?
We'll talk about that. But
Was nasty?
Let's wait and see.
Tyone?
Let's wait for Jameson Tyone. It's a big start for him tonight.
Yeah,
I think you've got a lot of reasons to worry after this weekend about the Cubs pitching that I thought was intact. As I said, Saturday morning, Drew Smiley, Drew, how great are things going? Tell us about it. And things were going great after Friday night. And then the bottom fell out.
That was a feel-good, by the way. Friday night, watched the game. Saturday, I heard your interview with Drew. I was feeling great.
I was feeling great, too. Jeez.
That's a tough question.
All right, on Bernstein and Holmes on Friday, Bears GM Ryan Poles left the impression that he was on the verge of adding a pass rusher.
We'll see. We're working on it. We don't stop working and looking at different avenues to bring players in. There's some options, potentially, trade options. There's also, some guys on the street still that could potentially come in and help us. So we're kind of looking at everything right now. Maybe something will happen sooner rather than later.
Are you thinking trade or signing off the scrap heap? Anything else stand out about Poles' appearance?
I'll tell you what stood out about it was that here we are again with Ryan Poles, pretty direct. Mully, I think maybe we're just dulled into hearing guys say nothing or be very guarded in how they present the information. And maybe he's not doing this on purpose, or maybe it's all intentional. But when he says what he just said, what we just heard, he's basically saying something's up. Somebody's on the way. And he's the one who brought up a trade. When you say a trade and you're talking to the Bears fans on the radio listening, then you're telling them, hey, you know what? Chase Young might be in play. You may not mean that, but that's exactly the way it's going to be interpreted. You're saying that, hey, Frank Clark, still in play. I think it's interesting because he opened the door to the possibility of somebody coming in to make an impact. When he says sooner rather than later, all we hear in the fans and the media is that, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, not if. So I was surprised that he was as forthcoming as he was. It'd be exciting if they do get somebody and they make a move because they still need a pass rusher.
Well, they still need a pass rusher. There's no doubt about that. I thought he was late joining them, but he did give them a lot of time. It was a good interview.
Yep.
If you haven't listened to it, I suggest you listen to it later. Not right now, but later, because we're on the air right now. Really good interview. I liked what he had to say about the best player supposedly in this draft at a position that the Bears desperately needed. And the fact that everybody basically, we can say whatever we want, and we can argue about this during this segment or later, but lots of teams took Mr. Carter off their board. And the fact that Poles still got something, even though there was no chance he was taking him, is a credit to him, even if it's next year. And even though it'll probably be a low fourth-round pick, he still got something when they weren't going to take that guy. And their guy would have still been there one pick later. So kudos to him. And they are not in a position to absorb that. And after they win double-digit games this year, they will be in a position, to absorb that in the future. But they weren't right now. So I like the interview. He seems like a good guy. He seems like a guy you could have a beer with. I enjoyed his time here on The Score on Friday afternoon.
Yeah, it was a great interview. Really a lot of fun. I got to tell you, my takeaway, because he traded the pick early, I thought he'd have a deal done by the end of the week. I thought that we'd have news by this morning that they had either traded or signed somebody. That's what it felt like. Because he's this guy that went out, traded the number one pick sooner than anyone.
And did he leave that impression?
He left that impression for sure. And I as I was listening to that again, I thought, what was I hearing that made me feel that way? Well, he kind of left you feeling that way. The other element is when we came out of the draft, when we came in here, we talked repeatedly, and we threw them a bone. We said, hey, sometimes the draft doesn't match up, but we knew going in, edge. You got to get pass rushers, and they didn't do it. And I think we were all a little bit confounded coming out of the draft that they didn't address the greatest position of need. And, Dustin just said, yeah, you do it next year. That's kind of, we've already said that they're going to probably, with one of their first round picks, they're going to get a pass rusher, right? Don't they have to? And maybe with the first one. But the bottom line is, I think it's interesting. The trade thing is interesting, just because that would mean they're getting a player that they plan on growing with and having there for a while. I guess all I'm saying is they know the same hole that we see. This is not, you're not insane if you thought they needed a pass rusher, because they're going to have to go get one, probably two, frankly. Hit both markets. Surprised it didn't happen already.
Well, no, that's a good question.
With just an 8.7% chance of finishing in the top four of tomorrow's draft lottery, and thereby keeping their first-round pick from conveying to the Orlando Magic, why was Dalen Terry chosen as the Bulls' on-stage representative? Is their mojo connected to a positive, upbeat attitude, and will it work?
That's weird. It's just weird that he's their representative. I'm sorry. Hey, here's a guy, if we could redraft, we'd probably pass on. No offense to anyone. But he was never that two-way player that was kind of sold to us, right? He was a guy that had a lot of energy and did a good job of bouncing around. And, he reminds me a little bit, watching him with trying to interview Zach and trying to interview DeMar DeRozan. It's almost like you got a little puppy dog that's jumping up on you and jumping up on you and jumping up on you. Okay, take it easy. He just is so enthusiastic, and he's clearly a very upbeat guy. And maybe they believe that somehow that energy will impact the flow of the ping pong balls. But I can't think of any other reason. Maybe they think he's going to get into the media sooner than later based on how he played last year. This is a really young guy that he probably has more holes in his game than you acknowledged. And now he's going to represent you at the lottery. It's weird.
Well, when things don't go right, which hopefully they will, but David's going to tell you no shot in a second.
David, don't
Now,
be so
now you're
negative.
writing my answers?
You can blame it on Mr. Terry, right? So if it doesn't go well, it's his fault. He didn't bring enough good mojo to the party. I mean, where's Benny the Bull? Come on. Is this not in Zach's contract? You pay the guy $500,000 a game. He can't show up and be the representative.
Where's AK or
Why?
Mark Evers?
Yeah, exactly. Why does it have to be somebody who isn't the obvious choice?
Well,
Isn't
do we
this-
know do we know the representatives of the other teams involved in the lottery?
I don't know. Does it matter?
Well, yes,
the
it
thing.
does,
No, not
because-
to me. Here's the thing: you didn't make the playoffs. You didn't make you got into the play-in. You didn't take advantage of that. Part of owning it is showing up. Again, what?
What if Rick Hahn's there?
Then we know things have gone terribly wrong.
Now you just uncovered it. That's why he was available on Friday. He
He's
was
in
busy
Secaucus,
getting ready
New
for the
Jersey.
draft.
I don't know what Dalen Terry's reaction to this assignment would be. He's a very happy-go-lucky guy. He is basically the backup mascot / point guard, and he's very affable. But is this good or bad for his career? You are such a guy that we're going to send you to be kind of the prop. Okay,
He should be representing the Windy City Bulls.
probably better. Did he do that more often than
He played well for the Windy City
He
Bulls.
did.
Yeah.
Maybe that's in his future. Unfortunately, because here we are, a year into and after he was drafted in the first round, and his biggest contribution might be showing up at the draft lottery. And if they get in the top 4, it will be because of him.
I thought the other day, though, you said that there was no chance, like we're not going to have another one of these magical nights like we've had for the Bears and we've
We're
had
not.
in the Blackhawks.
It's all moot.
Okay, well,
It's a moot
That was
point.
my point about you saying that.
You want me to poo-poo? I'm trying to play along. I didn't submit this question. It's ridiculous to think the Bulls have anything riding on the NBA draft lottery. It's a non-event. It doesn't matter in Chicago.
You're not
Thank you.
tuning
Good
in,
night.
right?
to watch
You
it.
already said you're not tuning in, correct?
I'm not tuning in.
Okay.
I'm not watching. Is that tonight?
I am
Tuesday night.
I am going to be
Read what
tearing
I
up-
wrote for you.
I'm boiling water. I'm tearing up sheets, and I'm going to pull that thing through the birth canal. That number 1 overall.
Dr.
pick.
Mulligan.
All right, now that the Lakers and Celtics have prevailed, the NBA's Final Four is set. Miami, Boston in the East, Denver, L.A. in the West. Surprised? Who do you like? Is there any Cinderella team in the Final Four?
It's weird because I think if you make the argument that Miami is Cinderella, then you're ignoring the fact that they've been here 3 of the last 4 years. And they are, with Eric Spoelstra, really, you look at his credentials, he's a Hall of Fame coach.
Incredible.
Jimmy Butler is who he is in the playoffs, and you have to respect that. So I don't know if I would consider them Cinderella, because I think they're going to give the Celtics all they can handle. So I look at I look at the oddity of having LeBron James leading a team that is the closest thing to Cinderella in the Final Four of the NBA. And that's absurd because it is the king, but he is Cinderella in this situation. And given these 4 teams, the Lakers started 2-10. They were left for dead, I felt like, at the trade deadline. They were doing things that didn't make any sense. They went through Russ, and then they have P. Bev, and then they tried everything. Nothing worked. They got all these odd pieces that are going together. Anthony Davis, he stars every other game. Then the games he doesn't star, he leaves in a wheelchair. But I think that when you look at the Lakers, you can't rule them out. That said, if the Nuggets don't win this year, given this collection of teams in the Final Four, they're never going to win, and you're never going to care. This is their opportunity for relevance, and I think they're going to take advantage.
Yeah, they have to win the West. You're right, David. And I think the NBA kind of poked the bear in Jokic. He is playing like an MVP, unlike the guy in Philadelphia. Oof, we'll get to that later. But he's playing like a real MVP. I don't think you can be a Cinderella when you have AD and LeBron on your team. I know they started poorly, but that's on them. That doesn't mean, ooh, look at this Cinderella story. When you have 2 guys of that caliber, they should have never been in the position that they were in the first place. So that's on them. And these talking head, if LeBron James makes it to the finals, we can restart having the conversation about LeBron and Jordan. No, you can't. See, when Jordan got to the finals, he won. He never lost in the final. You know, this other story, like Tatum, great, fabulous performance. If you're a Boston sports fan, great, 51 points in a Game 7. Jordan never had to play in a Game 7. Okay? So when you're going to get all hot and bothered about what he did, the difference is that Michael Jordan didn't have to push series till 7 games. I like Nuggets Celtics, but for the good of basketball, for the good of sports, Lakers Celtics and that rivalry, renewed, would be great for all of us. That would be great television. But I do agree, David, with you wholeheartedly. I mean, this is it. If Jokic can't get it done now, he's never going to have a better opportunity. This Final Four is soft, in my opinion, to say the least.
Yeah, I don't want Lakers Boston. Here's what I think. I think that the Lakers, they are the prime example in the league of almost misuse of time off. You know, everybody talks about load management and how you have to have everyone ready for this time of year. It's bad for the league if they succeed because it means that works. And I don't want to see a guy. You know why Anthony Davis is every other game in the playoffs? Because he's every other game in the regular season. And this was supposed to be a handing of the torch thing. So I think those guys missed too much time, which is why they struggled as much as they did. And the idea that will be paid off is really bad for the NBA, in my opinion. But those are some very intimidating names. And I don't care who you are, you're going into a Western Conference Final Series with those names, and it's bad. It kind of feels crazy. You're absolutely right. Denver's my team. I am backing Denver. I want them to win for the very reason you mentioned. You know, maybe Mark Jackson forgot about who this guy is, but the Joker has been one of the greatest players in the league over the last few years, and he is virtually unstoppable, and it's going to be fun to see him go against the Lakers. As far as the other series is concerned, the Heat break their rear ends. They practice. They have that whole mentality that comes from Pat Riley, and Spoelstra used to be a guy that just managed personalities, but now he's embraced that. And so they're a hard-nosed, tough, playoff-ready team because they work at it, and that makes them dangerous.
You'd like to see that rewarded.
I don't have a problem with that. I'm kind of done with Boston, and I think I picked Boston, but I'm kind of for the Heat.
You're taking the Heat?
No, I think Boston's going to win, and I think Boston is going to beat Denver. But I would prefer if Denver beat Boston. That's kind of the way I want it to unfold for the reasons you mentioned. All right, 312-644-6767.